Hello everyone, I just wanted to make a quick video discussing the new Aetna Protection Series final expense product. This is what is going to be replacing the American Continental application, which has the e-app's already been removed. It's going to be, I think they're taking paper apps for the next few weeks, if that. The product is essentially already discontinued. This new product here is interesting. It's got a few interesting quirks and features, and in addition, it actually is surprisingly a little bit similar to the Amcon product in some ways, which we will go over. So, number one thing we'll look at is what is this kind of product itself. So, it's not a traditional final expense, or at least in the way of a CVS, Ascendo, in the way that there's not standard, preferred, graded. It's just preferred or decline. Now, they do have the super preferred rates if they've gotten an Aetna Med Sup recently. However, for most of us selling, that's going to be a pretty rare occurrence. You can see, though, that the difference between the super preferred and the preferred rate is actually somewhat substantial. So if you're selling Aetna Med Sups, this is definitely a product that you want to have in your bag. But other than that, it's going to have its uses with traditional final expense selling, but not maybe in the ways that you might think. The other thing to note is that this completely depends on your contract, but the commissions, that at least the top level commissions, are quite a bit lower for this product than even the CVS and other final expense carriers that we use. So if you are getting contracted and plan to use this this new protection series from Aetna, you definitely want to take a look at your comp schedule and make sure that you know exactly what you're going to get paid. Because as you can see here, it goes from 45 to 89. So similar to that's the first similarity to American Continental is that it goes all the way up to 89, which is something. And by the way, without COVID questions, and it does not ask COVID questions, so that is something to take note of. Now, if we go over to the application here, you can see the Med Sup question there. It's for the super preferred rate. Now, when we look at the application itself, remember, if anything is answered yes, you don't submit the application because this is an approved decline application. Now, if you sell any Med Sups, you'll probably notice that these questions look very similar, if not identical, to the Medicare supplement application. So again, Aetna's really wanting to pair this with the Med Sup. And one question that stands out more than the rest is question number 10. Within the past 12 months, have you been medically diagnosed or taking injections for wet macular degeneration? Now, someone please correct me if I'm wrong, but to my knowledge, this is the only final expense product out there that asks a question about wet macular degeneration, something that's not really, it's really just a vision disorder. It's not exactly life-threatening, which is quite interesting that they would put that on here. And then again, the blood test questions, the systolic, diastolic blood pressure reading, something that, again, I don't know of any other final expense carrier that, outside of asking about uncontrolled high blood pressure, which can fall into this range, unless they're asking that in kind of a roundabout way, it's not really a traditional question either. Now, one thing that I will take note of is that in the same way that the American Continental application did not ask a question about ADLs or about angina, neither does this application. If you look here, the only place that they mention activities of daily living is if arthritis restricts activities of daily living. Now, remember, they do ask about connective tissue disorders, so rheumatoid arthritis would fall under there. But remember, psoriatic arthritis, osteoarthritis, if it restricts mobility or the activities of daily living in any way, it's going to be a decline. And I would go as far to say that with our clientele, that's going to be most people. It's going to restrict mobility in some way, in addition to osteoporosis with fractures. Now, remember that they still have a very extensive drug guide, and we'll pull that up here just to take a quick look at some of the quirks. It's all, of course, going to be built into Defects Toolkit exactly the way it is, but when we take a look at angina, spell that right, you can see there's only a few meds that they don't take if taken for angina. And this whole section here is essentially one medication, but it's actually quite interesting that pretty much every other product will ask a question about angina. Aetna expressly does not. Even if you type in the infamous nitroglycerin, they say right here that they take it preferred. Now, that this is going to be interesting to see with data points as we all start to submit business with them and collect more information. But they do say it right here that they take it. Additionally, if you type in arthritis, they do take a few different rheumatoid arthritis medications, but they don't list the reason. They usually say any condition for most of them. but most of them they don't take. Same thing with the osteoporosis meds. So definitely give a quick look over the drug list when you get a hold of your contract if you don't already have one, just to get a little bit acclimated with some of the medications that you might see in the most common fashion. But one other thing I'll point out with the medication or two actually. First one is the insulin question. So if your client's taking insulin, no go. If they have a history of diabetes with heart attack, stroke, so they're not too friendly with diabetes, I would say, on this application either. Now, if you take a look at their lung questions, you can see there's no question about COPD or really anything outside of people who have a lung or respiratory disorder and currently smoke, or if they currently use three or more medications for lung or respiratory disorder, provided they're not on oxygen or using a nebulizer. Now, you might say, well, that sounds a little silly, but if you look at the medications on the drug guide, even if you see the one that we probably see most often, which is Spiriva, they'll tell you they take it level right here. Now, the catch to this is nearly everyone who has COPD is going to be prescribed at least three medications, if not more. And even if they're not currently taking three or more, they're probably going to have those show up on their fill, almost definitely. So be very careful with this question you're submitting this. I would be pretty hesitant until we again get a little bit more data on how the product works. But at least the way it's worded on the app and how they have it on the drug guide, they do take COPD preferred. So to my knowledge, outside of Assurant, if the first fill is outside of 3 years and no changes to a COPD med, they're the only carrier I know of that will actually take COPD preferred. So it could have a niche use there. Again, you got to be very careful submitting it because of these two questions, but that's another thing to keep in mind. When we take a look at the state availability, it's not yet listed on the chart here. So if you scroll through the states, you're still going to see AmCon and just AmCon and Ascendo. But if you download the availability chart, the protection series is all the way down here. So it's surprisingly pretty available at this time. So if you're currently running business, you have the contract, definitely keep a lookout for it. Just note that they don't list, New York's not listed. I think that's maybe one other state they don't list, but it's fairly available as far as products go. They don't have California, so for those of you selling in California, that's going to be a miss there. Other than that, though, they have pretty much, well, they don't have Florida, so pretty much the two big ones. I think they do have Texas, but hopefully they'll get that availability a little bit improved over the coming months or the rest of this year. Other than that, though, it's definitely an interesting product. It's an interesting replacement to the American Continental application. It's definitely going to have its uses. So let us know what you guys think of this new product, which again will be live in Fex Toolkit probably by the end of this week, by Friday. Leave a comment, send me an email, joe@fextoolkit.com. Let us know how things are going. Other than that, we will see you guys in the next video. Thanks.